You're watching NCTV, celebrating 20 years of community broadcasting.
And good evening, Nevada County. Welcome to another edition of Nevada County Decides 2014. It's not a Meet the Candidates today. Today it's actually a forum here for the Office of District Attorney. Be sure you can watch these programs Monday through Friday, 5:30 and 10 o'clock at night. Plenty of opportunity from now until election time to tune in, meet the candidates, see who they are, and just find out a little bit more about them. Of course, you're right here inside the NCTV studios on Main Street in Grass Valley. We want all of you to come on down. Next time you're in downtown, pop your head in, say hi to Cheryl and the cast and crew here at the station. Get involved, come on down, run a camera, sign up, become a member, make television yourself. That's what community access television is all about. And that's why we're able to bring you shows like this today, where we're talking to both candidates for district attorney. So let's meet them right now. On our far left is our candidate, David Alkire, who's running for district attorney. And to my immediate left, Cliff Newell, who is the current district attorney. Gentlemen, welcome to our candidates forum.
Thanks, Gil. Thank you.
So let's go ahead and start here on the far left-hand side. David, you're running for district attorney. Let's tell people a little bit about yourself. How did you wind up here in Nevada County?
Well, I'm here because I like it here. I've been a practicing courtroom lawyer in California for over 20 years. I spent over 10 of those years as a deputy district attorney in Los Angeles County and Monterey County. But about 20 years ago, I started raising a family and decided this is the place I want to do it. My older son, Henry, was born at Sierra Nevada Memorial Hospital a little over 20 years ago. After that, we were in Monterey County for over 8 years, where I worked as a deputy district attorney. But in 2003, we came back here. My younger son, John, and older son, Henry, both went to school here, and they're off in college now. But I thought this is the kind of place where I want to raise my boys, and we did. For 10 years, I was a practicing lawyer in Nevada City with an office a couple blocks from the courthouse. And now I think it's time for the capstone of my legal career, which I hope will be District Attorney of Nevada County.
Well, that's a very common story, wanting to come up here and raise your kids in a different environment. How do you see the practice of law up here versus, say, down in Los Angeles, or even when you were assistant district attorney in Monterey? What is there any difference? Is it what are the differences practicing up here?
Well, for starters, on the criminal side, the crimes are a lot more serious in Los Angeles and Monterey County. I got experience there prosecuting and also defending every kind of serious and violent felony there is, up to and including death penalty murder. And that's one reason why I like it so much here in Nevada County. We don't see that much of that kind of serious crime here, which is a benefit for all of us. But frankly, Los Angeles is the major leagues. And if you can succeed, as I did for over 20 years as a trial lawyer in Los Angeles, you've learned how to do the job.
Well, and that's very true. It's the major leagues for a lot of things. That's where I got my television career, and you know, set me on the path to what we're doing here in Nevada County now. And Cliff will ask you the same question. How did you come about to waking up every morning here in Nevada County?
Started up here back in '98 as a probation officer in the county, and did that for several years. Then moved down to Sutter County as a trial attorney in the district attorney's office in Sutter, and then back from there to Nevada County again as a deputy district attorney. And then in 2006, I ultimately ran for the job of district attorney and prevailed in that election in the primary. And again in 2010, nobody ran against me in 10, and then here we are now in 14 with an election coming up in June.
You got an election coming up, and you have a candidate going for your position as well. How does that change the campaign? Obviously, now you have somebody running against you. What is that? What was your first thought with that?
Well, it hasn't changed the campaign much. Running for or against, in 2010, when I didn't have an opponent, I still did all the forums. I went out and just to assure people that I wasn't taking my position for granted and that I didn't have to run. I still ran a campaign. It was definitely a lot lower budget. There wasn't the need or the drive to get and spend money on mailers and signs and all of those things you have to do in a modern campaign. So that's where the difference is. I'm really focusing this campaign on what my qualifications are, what I've done in the office, and sticking with that as my campaign platform.
And David, I'll ask you the same question. Running a campaign, I know before we went on air, we talked a little bit about how you had a little campaign experience once before in your life. Did that opportunity kind of help you shape what your campaign is now, or campaigning for this position? How have you taken that on, incorporated that into your life?
Well, last year I closed my law office so that I would not have any suggestion of a conflict of interest in terms of representing private clients while simultaneously running for district attorney. So that was a major change. But frankly, practicing law here, it was not my major goal in life to run for district attorney of Nevada County, but people started approaching me, people in law enforcement, people in the district attorney's office, people from the community, suggesting that they wanted me to run for district attorney. And last year I started taking that more seriously, looking into it. And basically, after all that I learned, I decided that it was time for a challenge to take place, and no one else was willing to step up and do it, so here I am.
Well, first off, I want to congratulate both of you for participating in our democratic system. Because if you don't have two candidates, then you have what we had in 2010, which, ultimately served Nevada County well up until this point. But you always want to have a difference of opinion, and you want to have a couple different people to choose from. In the judges race, we have 5 different candidates, so that's a lot of choice for the community. Cliff, where do you see, if people are asking David to run, then that means that they must see some deficiency somewhere in the process that they're not understanding or not agreeing with.
Frankly, I think some of that's exaggerated, but every office has room to improve, and my intention going into the future is to build on the successes that I've had, which are, the office has increased jury trials, we have more investigators doing more investigations, we have lower crime rate in Nevada County, violent crimes down dramatically, overall crimes down. So I'm just going to focus on the successes that we've had in the office going forward in the future, and just bringing the office along. It's been a long road. There was some cultural changes I had to make, and those aren't always popular when you're running an office of 30 people or so. And we've done that, and we're moving forward in the future. We're building, modernizing the office with newer equipment and case management systems, and trying to get the office to be a more 20th century-like office with better business practices and business flows, and all of those things take time, effort, and changes, which don't always come easy for people who like doing it the old way.
Right, change is always difficult, and usually it's for the better. David, you're out on the campaign trail now, if we can refer to it as the campaign trail, as it is here in Nevada County. And you've got some supporters that suggested that you run. Now that you're out there, what's the feedback from the individual citizens that you're meeting? Do they know what the DA does? I mean, most of the time you're working in an area that very few people, percentage-wise, get to peek behind, much less have to be involved with.
Well, one of the things that has been most obvious to me is a lot of concern, both in law enforcement and in the general population, about this revolving door of people being arrested and released and not being held accountable for their criminal conduct. And the truth is that that is principally the function of the district attorney's office, and I intend to address that, as it has not been done in recent years. We've seen what happens when people are not held accountable but instead just laugh at the system. And I think that has got to stop, and I've noticed a lot of concern in the community about that kind of problem. That's one of the things I intend to address.
But isn't part of that state mandated? I mean, we only have so much leeway. There's finite resources. We're already, as a country, one of the highest in prison populations per capita. And of course, you can argue there's disparity there with whites and blacks and Hispanics or whatever, not necessarily the issues of Nevada County, but aren't you kind of hamstrung if when you're in that position to maybe follow through with as many things as you want, or put as many people behind bars? Or
I don't buy that excuse for 1 minute.
Okay.
Quite frankly, we have plenty of room in our local jail, and there is no excuse for letting people be arrested and released and continuing to prey on the community, as has been happening. And it's rather obvious. It's obvious in the local newspaper. It's obvious when you talk to police officers. And those kinds of generalized excuses that you were just providing here, frankly, don't cut it so far as I'm concerned. And it's principally the job of the district attorney, not the courts, and not the law enforcement agencies, to see that repeat offenders are identified and targeted and held accountable. And it's not happening now.
Well, might be an accountability factor. You see that, you read the stories, they've been arrested. I think there was one story where the guy was arrested 3 times in one day, just a few weeks back or something like that. Cliff, let's open up that can right there.
Sure.
and see, does David have a good reason to be concerned about the revolving door?
Frankly, Gil, no. The rhetoric doesn't match what the facts are. Looking at the statistics recently from CDCR, last year we sent 23 people to state prison for various crimes, and that was specifically due to the uptick we had in burglaries. And we had a couple of violent crimes, and those are the kind of things you focus your resources on in an office to get them off the street and keep the citizens safe, because they are repeat offenders. And we did exactly that. It was 10 more than the year before, which, to the chagrin of the state California Department of Corrections, they're trying to get people out of the prisons and back into our communities. That being said, some of the things that we're facing with the realignment and our Prop 36, the low-level drug offenders you do see kind of repeat. But we do have programs for them. We do focus our efforts on the ones that we can make a difference with, and the ones we can't, we just try to get higher sentences. As you know, the attorneys that work for me in the courtroom are out there actively engaged in doing that. And we have strategies. We work with law enforcement agency. We've worked here in Grass Valley with Chief Foster on a community policing program to help clean up the downtown area when they had a problem. And we were successful. We were kind of able to push them out. And we're now working on the same type of program in downtown Nevada City. They've been, the quality of life crimes, the habitual drunkards, the
no smoking
yeah,
policy,
no smoking stuff,
like
all those
that.
Little things that are so frustrating for the officers on the street and in
David,
any
does
community.
that begin at the lower level then, the kind of policy that you want to see enacted, cutting down the repeat offenders? Does that happen down at that local level?
At every level, yes. And frankly, whatever is being done is obviously not doing the job. We need more. We need more focus of resources, and we need success, not excuses.
Well, that's a very interesting, and I like that direct approach that you're talking about there. I, of course, am not in that district attorney's office or in that world, so it's interesting to hear because you hear the revolving door kind of like in the local media, but it hasn't been presented quite as eloquently as you just laid it out right now. You've been the district attorney now for a number of years. How have you seen the office change since the time that you were first elected?
Well, when I took over the office originally in 2006, my intent was to kind of change the culture of the office, to make it more trial-oriented, more holding offenders more accountable, to modernize the office. We were still working on, Windows 93 platforms and old CDRTs. And so I spent a lot of effort and time focusing on bringing the office up to speed technology-wise. And was able to accomplish that through several different means, through a few grants, through careful monitoring my budget and saving money from one year and bringing it over to the next year and making purchases. And so that's the technology aspect of it. Then the human aspect. We were, through a period of time, there was kind of a position creep that went on. So everybody in the office was a high-level prosecutor, DA3s. So there was no disparate, there was no young attorneys or middle attorneys. They were all very experienced prosecutors and all did a very good job for Nevada County. But then as those folks retired, I started changing the structure of the office. So I had 2 DA1s, 2 DA2s, and then the remainder being more senior and veteran DAs. And that has been really good for the office in general. And that's why right now when I go to look at trial stats, where we used to have 15 or 20 trials in a year, in the last 12 months we've had over 30 trials. It's reinvigorated the office. We've got some young kids that are go-getters, and then we've got some good mid-level attorneys that are in there learning the trade, and then of course we've got some good senior deputies that are there mentoring them along and bringing them up to fight the fight.
And of course, David, if you're successful in your campaign, you take over this staff of attorneys. Are you aware of all of them? Have you met all of them? Have you spoke with any of them from time to time? Or is this just going to be a brand new person at the helm for them and they're going to have to get used to your style?
Gil, I've not only met all of them, I've opposed most of them in court a number of times. I've met with them specifically about this campaign, and in fact, through their bargaining unit, along with the deputy public defenders, they've voted to endorse my candidacy. So I not only have the support of the deputy district attorneys in the present office, I also have the support of the deputy district attorneys who were formerly in the office. There are a total of 8 of them. 6 of them have publicly endorsed my campaign, the ones who have left the office. The other 2 are not permitted by their department head to make public endorsements. But quite frankly, both deputies who used to be in Mr. Newell's office and the deputies who are there now have endorsed my candidacy in this campaign. So I'd say I know them pretty well.
Well, so that would be yes. Well, that's good because that's an important role that you're going to be taking over. Now, you're going against them in court. That's a real trial by fire, right? As you're getting to know these people, you're battling them on a legal point of view. How does that work out as far as getting to know your fellow attorney?
Well, it works out just fine. There is no better way to learn the strengths and weaknesses of a lawyer than by personally opposing that person. Now, one thing I've had experience with doing is mentoring and training young attorneys who need that kind of guidance to become better trial lawyers. And this is something they are not getting at present. They are missing that kind of opportunity to improve their skills. And one of the things I've promised for them is that I will literally go into court, observe them, and in a positive way, offer suggestions, improvements, things that they can do better. This is something they crave and which they are missing at this time. And this is one of the reasons I believe they've chosen to endorse my candidacy.
Does technology play a role there? Because I asked Cliff how the office has changed. Back when you were an assistant DA in Los Angeles or in Monterey, you used a certain amount of technology there. Nowadays, it's 2014. Where does the technological element come into play in terms of doing that job?
Technology is the servant of the lawyers who work in the office. There are few jobs that require a more hands-on and human approach than being a deputy district attorney, whether you're dealing with crime victims, whether you're dealing with witnesses, members of the public who sit on juries. It's not a technological exercise if you do it right.
Mm-hmm. It's a people-oriented.
Yes.
And along with that question, how have you reached out to contact some of the groups, victims groups, and other groups that probation and Mothers Against Drunk Driving and other entities that have an interest in what it is that you guys are doing?
I reach out to individuals, and I've talked to a number of crime victims in this community. In fact, I got a call from one just the other day who had been the victim in a case where I was defense counsel. And he was quite supportive of my candidacy for district attorney based on his experience there. Frankly, a defense attorney as a prosecutor is a professional. It is not a situation where the defense is somehow in favor of crime. Rather, it is a situation where professionals bring to bear their skills in an adversarial system and try to get the appropriate result. And I think that is what, by and large, is supposed to happen. And there is respect on both sides. It is not a case of enemies jousting, but rather professionals who have their own jobs to do. And people understand that.
Well, I think that's very refreshing. Cliff, has that been your experience when you're battling the other lawyers that are, coming before the court?
Oh, very much so, especially in Nevada County. There's a certain collegiality about it, but when we walk into the courtroom, where it is an adversarial process, and we do it with respect to one another and to get the job done, and it has to be done well. I mean, every prosecutor wants the best possible defense attorney on the other side, so we're not coming back for appeals or redoing cases because ineffective assistance of counsel, or that the defendant's getting his every chance to assert his constitutional rights via his defense attorney. And as prosecutors, you really learn to appreciate that. So the better the defense is, the better we work also.
So where does that misconception of the public come in then, where, like David said right now, you're not in defense of crime, but everybody in this country has the right to a legal defense.
Absolutely.
So sometimes the public doesn't get that.
There are all sorts of misconceptions in the public about what's in our field, because we really kind of work behind the scenes most of the time. What we do and what I do, if I do it well, you don't hear about the DA's office. In the courts, the people are relatively unsure of what the judges do. So they don't see the day-to-day goings on up in the courthouse.
And there's a lot of goings on up there. David, let me go back to that comment that you made. Where is this misconception, do you think, that the public gets? Sometimes the crime is so heinous that they're demanding for justice without realizing that the person has the right to a trial?
Frankly, I think it's television and the movies. Courtroom scenes and crime dramas are such a compelling topic for fiction that I think most people's ideas of how things really work are based on fiction. And quite frankly, one of the things I do as a trial attorney in jury selection and argument is try to disabuse members of the jury of the idea that they're going to watch a TV show here, because things are quite different in the real world of the criminal courts than they are on television. And not to make television or movies the whipping boy for all of this, but really I think that's where people get their misconceptions from.
So that's not the role of the DA to educate the public, though, right? One of his roles, or would you consider that education of the whole system is something that we need as a society or here in Nevada County?
I think that the schools obviously play a part, but what I was talking about just now was more on the micro level. If you're presenting evidence as a prosecutor to members of a jury, one of the first things you have to make them understand is that this is the real world, and the evidence comes in through witnesses and through physical exhibits, and we can't show you a video of how the crime happened. And that, once you get over that hurdle, then people settle back and pay attention, and things generally come out all right in the end. But that's part of the educational job of an individual prosecutor trying a case.
Fascinating, just the whole judicial system. And of course, you don't work all just by yourself. There's a whole court system and judges. Cliff, how do you mesh your realities with the realities of the court itself and the taxing list of things that they have to do on a daily basis?
Well, when you're talking system-wide, Gil, it's really incumbent upon the district attorney to be out there as a liaison with all of the people in the community, with the nonprofits, with the businesses, with all of those people that make up the fabric of our society. You need to be woven into that and in touch with it So you're making them aware of what goes on in our system. And I've been very successful at that over the last 8 years, being part of that and bringing my world to theirs so they understand it. In the day-to-day grind, it's a large balance. You've got the court system, as you indicated. You've got our office. I've got 9 deputy district attorneys that work with me that do the majority of the trial work, do all the trial work actually. And then we have to interact with the probation department and the various law enforcement agencies. Mostly the sheriffs, or a lot of the sheriff's department, because they're probably the DA's biggest client. And the sheriff has endorsed me, by the way. Keith Royal endorsed me early on in the candidacy. And so those are the people you've got to spend and work with effectively to make the whole system work. Because it's not always about getting a specific outcome on every specific case, because if we could just put it into a computer. What it's about is building a system that affords justice in Nevada County, not just prosecution and sending people away. That's certainly a large part of it, but you have to pick all the other pieces together and work within the community, especially now when we are not able to send people to state prison. The state prisons are sending people back at a higher percentage than they ever have. The weekly parole grants are up to about 42 to 48% of the people looking to get out on parole, whereas historically they used to be between 25 and 35%. So the state is making conscious effort to send more criminals back to the community to be supervised by our probation department. So you have to work well with them at the top levels in building what we have built in Nevada County, which are systems to handle this incoming demographic of criminality.
And David, the court system, kind of complicated. I mean, you got the running of the court, you have the judges, which have their own work to do. Where does the DEA fit? How do you see yourself meshing with all those components?
I see myself meshing very well, and I'm glad Mr. Newell here reminded me that the largest law enforcement organization in this county is the Deputy Sheriff's Association. They provide all the bailiffs in all the courtrooms for court security, as well as patrolling the entire county of unincorporated areas. And that Deputy Sheriff's Association has endorsed my candidacy in this election race. And they've done it because they're the ones who see every day, day in, day out, what's going on in the criminal courts. I think I'll have no difficulty whatsoever working with them or with the judges and court clerk staff.
So I could assume that you're already very familiar with all the judges that you'd be working with, and of course Sean Matroka, who runs the whole, I don't even know how he does that, some kind of Ouija board or, you know, juggling that together. But it seems that overall the justice system here is in Nevada County for the general population. It isn't on something that's on their mind every day.
It's only on their mind when they get caught up in it, typically as a crime victim or a witness. And this is why it's such an important thing to have the district attorney's office run so that people can have confidence in that district attorney's office. And that's what I propose to restore if I'm elected.
We have 2 men before us that want to take over the reins of that office and make our community safer. So I want to thank you guys both for being here tonight on our candidates forum. David Alkire.
Alkire, yes.
Okay, got it right. Practiced about 4 times. And of course, Cliff Newell, our incumbent DA. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here tonight on the candidates forum.
Thank you, Gil. Appreciate
the time. All right, and nice to meet you. All right, that'll about wrap it up for us. Be sure to tune in Monday through Friday, 5:30 and 10 o'clock for all the latest candidate news and interviews right here on NCTV. I'm Gil Dominguez. We'll see you next time right here as Nevada County decides in 2014.